Hello there, top of the morning to you. This here be your beloved host, Hell's Unicorn, and I be here to be telling you a few things that have been getting me dander up of lately. You see, there's been all this talk been going around all over the internet and particularly on Facebook talking about this mass shooting that happened at this Navy Yard over in Washington, D.C. And there'd be a lot of pontificating be going on about guns and how horrible they are, as if guns can just get up all by themselves and just start shooting people. But you see, me here, being the well-discerning Mick, I be having a few more things to say on the subject. And back to my normal voice. There are a couple of things that I wanted to point out about this so-called mass shooting that just took place, which everybody is still talking about, which most people are not talking about with a few exceptions, but I think need to be mentioned just for the sake of getting it out there. First off, I think everyone has duly noted the individual's ethnic persuasion, so to speak. And there have been people talking about how, oh look, another one of Obama's would-be sons is at it again. And while I'm not going to dwell on this too much because I don't think this plays as much into that issue because this isn't an obvious gangbanger, this is a government-employed person of color and therefore it's a different bag of cats, I'm going to focus on some other things here. Gun control enthusiasts have a sacramental relationship with mass shootings. Every time one happens, there is always an opportunity to state their case and to make their cause known yet again to all of us who obviously have not heard these same arguments 14 or 15 or low 16 times before. Indeed, while going through all of the websites, I actually came across an old article on The Nation, one of my least favorite publications, and there was a tally of 16 mass shootings that took place in the United States in the year 2012, leaving at least 8 dead. And they go on this article listing every single incident and talking about all the deaths and injuries. But being the discerning and intellectually curious person that I am, I decided to do another search, and I came up with an even more interesting statistic, and that was in the year 2012, 587 people were killed by police officers. Now, if we eliminate from that very large number of 587 people the numbers that include quote-unquote people that were killed because maybe they drew a gun on a police officer or something like that, you could probably degrade that number by a good bit. But I would be willing to guess that if you count botched SWAT raids and all of the rest, you would have a near equal number to that horrendous 88 people who were murdered at the hands of mass shooters. But that doesn't seem to get the same amount of press coverage now, does it? In fact, that famous quote where Obama said in his illustrious manner, "I do not want military tools on the streets of the United States of America," that doesn't really apply when we're dealing with paramilitary police now, does it? Have you seen some of the interesting toys that a lot of these SWAT groups for these various state and federal police departments have at their disposal? It's enough to rival James Bond at his worst. But, lest I belabor the point further, let me get back to the initial one. 587 people killed by law enforcement. They argue similarly in this particular article, which I did take off of Wikipedia, and it has all of its materials sourced from the FBI justifiable homicides rate, and this is at the highest in more than a decade in the case of 2012. Now, to point out the fact here, 587 people killed by police. You will not hear that stated anywhere in any news publication save certain members of the alternative media, but it's right out there clear as day. All you have to do is type in a nice little search that says number of people killed by police in 2012 or any other year, and you will get a detailed list on Wikipedia. People knock Wikipedia all the time, but it is a good secondary source, and it usually is pretty good about citing its primary source, so you can do further reading, and I recommend anybody who can should do that. What we have here is a failure of priority and a failure of basic scientific methodology. One of the things that you want to do whenever you want to fully understand a situation is you have to fully deconstruct it. You have to consider all the variables. You can't just fixate on one and just filibuster, filibuster, filibuster. Ooh, guns are evil, guns are evil, guns are evil. Yeah, I know all that bullshit. I don't care. Oh, and for the record, I have linked a interview on Crossfire with two particular guests, one of them being Larry Pratt of Gun Owners of America, and another one was an activist whose name I don't care to recall, who was actually one of the victims who survived the Virginia Tech shooting. I'm going to share something with all of you. When I want to have a logical discussion about the issue of gun control and of mass shootings and all of this other stuff, the last person that I want to hear from is a victim of one of these events. As far as I'm concerned, and you can feel free to call me cold-hearted if you want to, but the victim of gun violence, particularly in an isolated case such as a mass shooting, is no position whatsoever to argue the topic logically. And if we're not arguing the topic logically, we're not arguing it at all. We're simply appealing to emotion, and I have no time for that. And neither should anybody else, but apparently a lot of people see fit to make time for that sort of rubbish. And if that's your poison, then by all means go to CNN or MSNBC and fill your head with rubbish. Me, that's not my way of doing things. So, in conclusion, I wish to state the following. Mass shootings occur all the time, and they always make headlines because people like a good, shocking story. Police killing an innocent person usually doesn't get beyond local news because, one, doesn't make for quite as good a story because making the government look bad is not really something that the corporate-controlled media is really into, considering that the government will tend to serve the interests of their employers. So whenever you see the news babbling on and on about this stuff, just take it with a grain of salt. Till next time, with prudence to myself and benevolence to all of you, good evening.